Hey everyone, welcome to the Gyst podcast.
If you're tired of being comfortable and want to take on living life from the context of 100%, fuck yeah!
Join us each week as we share lessons we're experiencing in this crazy game called life.
We invite you to play along and get your shit together.
Take responsibility for how your life is currently going, and at the same time, take on new, fun, and sometimes crazy shit.
We promise to challenge your thinking by being vulnerable, authentic, and straight up with what we're dealing with, what doesn't work, and what can.
Be warned, this is not your grandma's podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Life goals, right?
Right? Oh wait, are we going to try this mic or what?
For our guest?
Do we have a guest?
No. I was being facetious.
Okay. Can't? No. Well, no, I was just, have you tested it or?
I mean, I've turned it on and it's receiving a signal, but I haven't tested it, and it would be too disruptive to set it up right now. We'll do that if we don't have a guest on soon, and I think Tony and Marcy want to come on the podcast soon, and that would be perfect because there's two of them.
Oh, they were supposed to be on before, right?
They were supposed to be on before, yeah.
Okay, now I remember. Yeah, that's who I thought it was, but...
Yeah, cool. So we'll test it on them and see how it goes and go from there.
See what it's like to have four of them rolling.
Yeah, totally.
It's really interesting.
A whole new world.
Unless I want to come and sit and be cuddled up closer to you.
You totally can do that.
That could always work too. That's always an option.
You need to sign an NDA though. We are rolling, by the way.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Oh, I didn't put in my voice. I didn't put on my podcast voice.
Need my spray.
That's right. They can tell. It's like when you're standing up or sitting or smiling versus frowning on the phone. Right?
Yeah. Well, this morning I was practicing my little thing in November.
Oh, still haven't. Yeah, I haven't heard that in a while. I'm sure that's getting.
It's definitely dialed in for sure. I'll send the next recording over. And
did you invite me to that event?
Well, there's no invite yet for it.
Oh, okay.
So that will open up probably mid-October. I'm going to start
making
seating,
people aware. Yeah,
seating people mid-September. See where it's at. I don't want to be too eager.
Come to my thing, man.
Yeah, totally. It's in 2 months. Okay. Well, let me know when it's closer. Okay.
Yeah.
That, of course, is a huge fucking story. But I imagine.
Yeah, totally, man.
I'm excited about it. And this morning I was...
as it should be.
Yeah, I was...
Takes huge balls.
I have huge balls.
big sensitive balls, eh?
Oh man, is this going live? I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt.
My voice was starting to kind of give a little bit this morning, like it's getting a little bit raspy.
Okay.
And right away it's like, oh, you've done enough. You've already practiced once. You're good. So you give your voice a rest for the podcast, you know.
Well justified.
What a bullshit story that was. So I did it a couple more times.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm
You
feeling
know,
good about it.
Good, man. That's good, dude. I'm really proud of you for that. That's like way to completely take on like a whole different realm of possibility and just embrace it and work with it and be like, okay, well, I'm committed to this thing and I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's interesting because I've noticed with myself deepening the distinction of work or whatever you want to call it, right? Practice, right? Doing the necessary steps to internalize something. Right?
Yeah.
And when there's something like, for example, at my networking group, we do these 7-minute, I think it's every quarter, you get a 7-minute spotlight where you can present something. And I just find it incredible how so many, and there's nothing wrong with this, but so many of the people,
they're like scared rabbits up there.
well, they're like scared rabbits, but part of the reason, so put a pin in the scared rabbit for a second. I'm amazed at how many of them don't actually really practice.
Right.
They kind of have an idea of what they're going to say. They build some slides and they quote unquote hope I can get that done in 7 minutes. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then when I tell them that I actually record myself about 10 times, because that seems to be the number where I get it dialed in, I don't write anything down. I do it from scratch. I record myself, and then it's really choppy and long, and then I start to just shave it down and dial it in, and by the time I practiced it 10 times and watched it 4 or 5 times, I'm there.
It's there.
It's smooth and it's dialed in. 5.5 minutes, right?
Dude, I noticed something this morning. So I put them in little flashcards, right? And the flashcards are about 4x5, and it isn't just like 2 or 3 words on there. There's a paragraph, about average, maybe 5 or 6 sentences, and there are 50 of these cards. So I got a fracking stack of flashcards that I'm running through, right?
Right.
And the first story when I looked at my stack of flashcards, I'm like, holy shit, I got to memorize. I'm saying that I'm going to memorize all of this.
Right.
And that whole thing that shows up is like, dude, good luck.
Totally.
Or whatever the story might be. And the reality is, it is one push-up more than you did before.
Right.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And this morning, I ended up looking at the flashcards were there, and I would close my eyes and I would say it, and I'd open my eyes if I wasn't sure what the next thing. I'd see the line, and I'd close my eyes again. And it was for probably 60% of it coming out. Like I had a context for what was going to be talked about next, which was the whole point of all of this.
Right.
It was pretty impressive.
Okay, man, you're hitting on something golden here, because we're talking about... by the way, welcome to episode 40 of the Gyst podcast. What up?
It's 40. Oh my God. Where's the little...
Yeah, where's my fireworks and all the fire engines shit I wanted happening here? But
yeah, we're at episode 40. It's a huge milestone for us. It's like the new 50.
40 is the new 50.
Right?
Right? And 50 is the new 40? Is that...
Or maybe the new 70?
Because when you get to 40, you have a little bit of wisdom, right? But when you get to 50, it's like you've got the wisdom, but now you're seeking vitality.
Right, dude, that's brilliant. So 50 will be the new 40. Oh man, that just kind of rocked my world a little bit. You're welcome. I'm like, where's he going with this?
It's good stuff. So episode 40, really exciting stuff. Happy to be here. But I wanted to come back to what you're talking about in terms of one extra push-up. One extra. So we created that context this morning. I was telling David that, normally people will be like, oh, I'm going to start doing some exercise in the morning. They're going to do this hardcore program. We do these things and build it up huge. And really, we're setting ourselves up for failure, because going from 0 to 60 and sustaining that pace is not possible. It just doesn't work.
Crash and burn, man.
So I just started really basic. This is almost embarrassing, but it's like when I wake up in the morning, I just do 20 squats, right? And I stopped eating extra sugar. Okay, so I'm not going hardcore and being like, oh, is there sugar in that? I'm not doing that. But I always joke and say I'm like a little kid with a debit card. Like, I eat candy and chocolate bars. Like, I eat shit that I shouldn't eat. I think it has something to do with like just not being able to have access to that stuff when I was a kid. I have no idea.
Yeah, fair enough. And now it's in your control.
Yeah,
you have the power.
Totally, and I deserve it. But so I stopped this week. I've done very well with just not having that stuff, and I've already noticed the way that I feel and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, that's one simple thing instead of like the hardcore diet. Well, now I'll start with like 20 squats in the morning. So as this is like day 2, as I'm doing my squats, I mentioned to David, I was like midway through, I'm like, I'm just going to do 21. And then tomorrow I'll do 22. And I want to actually just get to like, I pop out of bed, I do 100 squats. But if I was thought about doing 100 squats, could I do it? Yeah. But I'd do it for a day.
Yeah.
I'd miss the next day. I might do the third day.
You'd be super sore.
Yeah. And I'd be like, fuck this, right? So, yeah, anyway, so building up. And what you're talking about is so critical, because I even think for myself, like, I want to do some speaking someday. But then I think, like, how the fuck am I going to be able to execute even a TED Talk, 18 minutes? What if I'm on a 45-minute keynote? Holy God, like, how do you do that?
My piece, all in, is almost 18 minutes.
Right, so that's my point. What you're talking about is, most people, when I was saying about the scared rabbits, even the 7-minute presentation, they view internalizing that as such a far milestone. Like, I'm not going to be able to remember what I want to say at minute 10 of this talk or whatever, right? So I'll just hope for the best, right? They'd rather it, right? And so that's why when you, that's a contributing factor, would be my guess, when you get up in front of all the people, that you're like actually jittery. Now you might be a little bit nervous when it comes, of course. But it's going to set in where you're going to be like, I know this.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to go into it the people are going to disappear, and you're just going to be doing your thing.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like, that's what it's all about. One cue card at a time, man.
The whole comment about the people, like being with people. So Maya had made a request to every day, and I haven't done this, every day I would speak it to her, tell it to her.
Yeah.
She would be my audience.
Right.
Now, there could not be a safer person to share this with. And I've done it a couple times.
Right.
So that conversation, the nervousness of like, now you are in front of somebody. It's one thing to record it and send it out. It's a whole other thing to be with people and the dynamic of people and their energies and their looks and all of my assessments that are going on as to why they're looking at me that way. Like all of that shit's now in play.
What just happened?
Totally. Anyway, so I find that really funny and fascinating. And why am I not doing that? Because that would really make a difference for that thing being in front of people.
For
Even
sure,
if it's just one person.
And I need to get a bell or something because I have like a cool idea alert.
Bing!
Right? Are you ready for this?
Cool idea alert.
I think that you should.
Uh-oh.
In October, maybe Halloween or something like that. We host some people, and maybe you actually
do like a private.
Do a private.
Dude, that just freaked the shit out of me. I'm like, oh, look at the time. I gotta go.
Yeah, it's like. So anyway, what else is going on?
Totally. We'll put a pin in that. How's that sound?
Yeah. No, I think that would be a really cool thing. It'd be great practice, and it would be like sort of special, right, for the people that are really close to you. And
oh man, I have got like the major, the ball in my belly kind of swelling and yelling a little bit.
I totally get it.
Oh my God. It is brilliant. It is a really cool idea. Maybe do it at the office in Inglewood or something.
Yeah, you could do something. Yeah, that would be really cool.
Kind of set it up that way.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, not like I got anything else going on, and
right?
And you're just gonna put this right in my plate. That's cool.
Well, I'll tell you what. If that's something you really want to do, like intentionally. It doesn't necessarily have to be a party or anything. It could be a social or whatever. But if you really wanted to practice that in front of some specific people, get some feedback, like I'd be happy to help you, like plan it out, host it, invite some people, whatever I got to do to help you. Whereas you can focus more on, practicing and being ready for.
And that I'm going to totally take you up on that. And the thing that showed up for me is oh man, we are so fucked up in the head sometimes. So. I'm sharing this because it's so critical to get the background conversation out of he's concerned and he's got these things and I can totally relate but can you? Because how I created it was like the small little intimate gathering is like 20-30 people and it's now a performance versus and the whole context of like, well, don't fuck that up. Comes right back into the equation. And the reality is it could be a handful and should be a handful, 5-6 people that, to your point, would really make a difference in helping me move this forward. It's not it.
It's almost like when you have 30 people, you're going to get lip service.
Totally.
Right? And there's going to be 3 or 4 people who might give you the real feedback you're looking for. So let's just get those 5 or 6 or 3 or 4 or whatever. We'll all get into a room and you go, here we go. And you can have fun. You'd be like, okay, guys. And matter of fact, you could do it 2-3 times if you wanted to.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we could all just, give you that feedback.
Just
and be
listen
like,
and contribute and see what shows up. So the guys that I was practicing with on some of my first ones that are still kind of incubating, this one took priority a bit, and we'd hang out for an evening, and they're both musicians, and I asked them for some coaching and some feedback. How do I like really make this dynamic? And they had also suggested that you should just do a small little thing and in preparation for like quote unquote going public, right, and doing it at a poetry slam or whatever it is, because that's a whole other, not only am I sharing it publicly, but I'm sharing with people who do this regularly, or the story that I have, they're seasoned and professional. Yeah.
Well, they've heard somebody do some kind of art before.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, it's so cool.
What's really cool about it, though, is that the amount that you would grow in that one practice run
by leaps and bounds,
right? And then you do. It's just
that. So the book that I'm reading right now from Gary Hendricks. It's like not there. Oh, The Big Leap. Not Gary. Gay Hendricks. I don't know why I get that name wrong all the time. He talks about hitting your upper limits, to staying in your current level of genius, like not really busting out of it. And and when you hit those upper limits, you'll actually notice when you hit those upper limits, because of there's something that goes on that stops you and keeps you over here. That's hitting my upper limit. There is actually growth necessary for me to be, as I'm on my journey for discovering myself and being whole and complete. That's part of it. And every time I hit that upper limit, that thing that stops me and keeps me back here, it could be a conversation I have that I get triggered by. It could be an opportunity, right, to speak inside of a small, intimate group to get better at, and it just keeps me over here. But that's not what I'm up to.
Yeah, and the more of those things that you take on, it's just going to stretch your sphere that much more every time. And the new, we talk about the new normal, right? There's like these things that become
50 like, push-ups or sit-ups, squats are like, no, this is not a thing.
Yeah, or doing spoken word at a jazz bar. Or,
yeah,
that's what it is, right? But being able to do that, be like, oh yeah, sure, right? Actually, when we're talking here, this small intimate event might not be the medium to do so, but I realize I actually want to get more practice hosting, or I guess like emceeing? Like events. Like I want to pursue speaking. I love to tell stories, and I want to have an impact on people. And I think for me, one of the things that has had most like large impacts for some reason is just when I hear a really good talk or a story, things shift, and then it actually drives me to action. I'm like, wow, because it could be one section of an 18-minute talk that just hits you. You're like, oh. And if I could have one aha moment for 10% of a 100-person crowd, I'd be like, that's worth doing that. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so speaking is something I want to.
Yeah,
and it actually scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, I bet. And I've been to some of your past. When we first got to know each other, you had hosted a few, and you are good in front of people. So I don't know when the last time is that you heard that, because I know you've heard it before, right?
Yeah,
it would be impossible for you not to have, because you're good in front of people.
Well, I appreciate that. And what's funny, actually, speaking of which. That's how the whole conversation about practice at my networking group came up.
Right.
Because somebody came up to me like, Vern, wow, you're like really good, man. Like, you're good up there. And I was like, yeah, well, it's not like I rolled out of bed and was like, all right, I'm off to do my presentation. They're like, oh, you like practiced? They were surprised. And I was like, yeah, like I just, I set up my video camera, I put on my little lapel mic, and I just speak it out. They were like,
what the
like their eyes were like saucers. I was like, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I was like, wow, that's okay, that's a thing. I had to acknowledge myself. I'm like, okay, I guess that's not normal for everybody.
Yeah, right. It's how quickly we forget what we assume to be normal.
Actually, my story was I didn't do enough.
That you're going to fuck it up and
get ready. Vern, all you did was fucking record yourself a few times. Like, I mean, what's the big deal? Like, you could have practiced more,
Man, we are so bad.
Yeah, right.
We are naughty little boys.
Slap on the wrist. You smarten up, boy.
It is insane what we will allow the conversation to do and to dictate for ourselves and release control over.
Right.
I'm reminded of that all the time. Yeah.
And you wonder why people are so tired and so stressed. And just imagine all the things that you have going on in your life, right? And imagine what your life would be like if you weren't actually developing yourself, if you weren't taking things on and deepening the distinctions and you know what I mean? Like, because I can only imagine when I get unplugged and then I get triggered and I'm reactive and default, man, that is like a scary and a really, really stressful way to live. And there's, I mean, and I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else. I want to be the best version of myself, period.
Absolutely.
And there's people out there that don't realize what they're capable of.
This is super timely. So I'm not saying this to toot my horn here. I'm just creating context because the reality is we say we don't have enough time, and there's always time if you're in control of it. So I was up at 5 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
I did not want to get up at 5 a.m.
I was going to bring that up, actually.
You were, eh?
Yeah.
I was kind of digging into Vern this morning because he had his stories running about maybe not wanting to do the podcast this morning.
You know, when we don't have our stories running, it's easy to be the armchair quarterback. Oh, I was up at 5. I was like, you fucker.
Yeah, so I decided to throw that in there, and I'll see you at 9 was the message, but not to get too far.
Yeah.
So I spent some time reading, doing a little bit of journaling, just like nothing too intense. Mm-hmm. And I was inside of reading the book, there are some questions inside of discovering your journey and getting back to or discovering our own version of what whole and complete looks like for us. These were amazing questions. I'm like, rewind, press play.
Where was this at?
This was The Big Leap from Gay Hendricks.
Okay, I think that's on my list.
I had mentioned it before. Yeah, really, really good book. Again, talking about the upper limits. So, first question, where do I feel out of integrity with myself? And when we talk about integrity, when he talks about integrity, it is the idea of being whole and complete, that nothing is missing. And there are other definitions of integrity, and that is one of them. And that's where he's creating this from. Yeah,
and just a caveat there is there's a lot of words like integrity that people think that they get.
Right.
And integrity is something that I refer to as a mountain with no top. Like there's always a deeper distinction of integrity.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and just a heads up, in my experience, if you think that you're integral and you have integrity, you better check that.
Yeah, you're not, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first question, where do I feel out of integrity with myself? Second question, what is keeping me from feeling whole and complete? What important feelings am I not letting into my awareness?
Oh, wow.
I know.
Love that.
Where in my life am I not telling the full truth? And where in my life have I not kept my promises? In my relationship with whoever, insert name here, what do I need to say or do in order to feel complete or whole? And
wow, that could be 10 different names.
It could be. These questions are those types of questions where you could spend your whole life asking and re-asking yourself as you are discovering it, like creating it, connecting the dots when you ask it the first time.
Right, because the questions the answers to those questions and the names in the different areas that you're out of integrity with or not whole and complete with could change literally on the daily, let alone yearly.
Are changing.
They are, right?
The reality is they are changing.
Absolutely. So it's not like, oh, I answered those questions. Cool, I got this.
Totally. Yeah, I've done this work. I'm good to go.
And I can tell you, when I listen to episode 40 of the Gyst podcast, I'm going to be writing those questions down. So if anyone's listening to this, or the people who are listening...
Rewind.
I can tell you right now, when I'm listening to the Gyst podcast, episode number 40, I'll be writing those questions down.
Vern, are you shamelessly plugging us?
I think that people who are listening now should be doing the same.
That's so great.
I just should on you guys.
Hey, we had somebody not call in, but send an email.
I was literally going to bring that up just now.
Brilliant.
So this is actually... really exciting for me. Like, I think this is a big deal. We had our first email.
This is a big deal.
It is a big deal. I've been encouraging people. We want to hear from you guys. And I know that there's a lot of people listening, and I know that there's people that we know who listen, and that means you guys too. I don't want to start name dropping on you guys, but you can write in. We would love to hear some feedback from you guys. Something that you got from the podcast. A question that you have, a topic you want us to touch base on the podcast. Is there things that you're dealing with in your life? Like, that's why we're here. That's what we're up to.
So just to put that in there, say hi at thegyst.life. And here's the thing. it seems like a really good thing, a good idea. I should totally ask them in the moment. And then after, like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like, I'll do that later. Stop. If you have a question, just send it right away and see what gets created. Because what got created with Richard was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah.
And actually, I learn all the time when I show up here, like many of you, I'm sure. Say hi at the Gyst .life.
Yeah, that's the new one.
If there's anybody who has stuck in their brain or they're confused and they have say hi at the gystpodcast.com.
That also works.
That also works. Okay, yep. But it's say hi at the gist.life.
That's right.
Cool. It's tighter. It's shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to read this out. This does happen to be a friend of mine, and matter of fact, this is exactly how this happened, and I'm still okay with it. He texted me and gave me some feedback about a podcast episode that we had, episode 39 with Nicole, and he was just like really profoundly touched by her story, and he's like, dude, like an hour's not enough. I want me some more of that.
That's so
and
funny.
I was like, man, that's fucking awesome. And I'm like, hey, do you know what? You should send us some feedback at sayhi@thegystpodcast.com. And he didn't text me back, and then all of a sudden a day or something later we got this email. I'm like, yeah. Fucking right on. He did it, but I wanted that for a couple reasons. I mean, just because it's nice to get a text message, but I want, you know what I mean? And I wanted you to see it. Like, yeah, man, write in because I want to see this. So,
and he took it to the next level.
He absolutely did. So I'm going to do my best to just quickly read this because so he says, hi, Gyst Podcast. I recently listened to episode 39. Nicole sounds amazing. I want to hear more from her and would love to chat with her in person. So, like, that's what's possible with this thing. Like, this is a person now who wants to meet her.
Yeah.
And maybe she has a product or service, or maybe it's just a connection.
Right.
Right? And she can have an impact. And that's the kind of impact that she wants. She's not a monetary type person, but we all need to take care of ourselves. And I know that she has a lot of value to add to the world. So, he told me that, by the way, he did tell me that I could read this on air. And if any of you, I always say this, I keep touching on it. If any of you are concerned, you want to share something with us, we're happy to keep anything anonymous, okay? If you say, like, look, I really would appreciate if you don't use my name or whatever it is, we're happy to do that. So don't let that hold you back from writing in. I've spent 2018 depressed, going through ups and downs, emotions, feeling completely alone. I wish I had the stones, and I don't know what that means, but
the
stones. He
the
means
gonads. You know,
okay, that's like a guy thing. I wish I had
right.
the balls. Okay, I wish I had the stones and self-reflection she had in high school. Oh, okay, I got it. The last month has been a lot better for me, but hearing her say it made me scream out, yes. He put that in capitals. She's so right. I need to work on me. How can I give every day to everyone else if it isn't right with me? Like, totally. He goes, you guys have a great podcast. Check mark. I look forward to new episodes as I work toward getting my shit together. Love that he finished it like
totally.
That
That's so great.
So great. So, and then we had some back and forth with that, but like that touched me, man. I'm like, holy shit. Like, he's a human being. So that means that's the kind of impact that we're potentially having on listeners. Like, that is fucking super exciting.
Yeah. So there was another person that kind of came out of the woodworks a little bit. Nicole was at an event called, what was it called? Rumble House. I'm not clear what Rumble House is. I think it's an initiative or community for artists. And one of the artists there, her name is Karen, said that she I don't know if they know each other. I'm not 100% clear of the context, but she had not realized who she was, and that she had actually heard Nicole on the podcast that she listens to.
Yeah, right.
And right. Nicole's like, you mean the Gyst? And she's like, yeah, it's my podcast. And I'm like, and this is all on Facebook, so this was all kind of logged there. And you had already made some comments around that, but and she discovered it from her son.
That's what I asked her. I said, oh my gosh, you listen to the podcast? Great, because I got to tell you, I'm still kind of surprised.
You shouldn't be. You got to stop that.
I know, dude. I know, but that's the thing, right? That's part of my own.
The great surprise and delight of doing
Yeah,
this.
it's great, but that's what I'm saying. That's part of my own internal dialogue. I'm like, wait, this person like isn't a person we know, and they heard of the podcast. I'm like, how did you hear the podcast? And then she says, my son. So of course I creep on the guy's name, and I realize, wow, he's not my friend, and he's not your friend.
Right.
I'm like, that is amazing. Right? So I'm like, okay, just silently to myself. I'm like, that's so cool.
It's really interesting. So echoing again, the little consistent steps, one step at a time, getting rid of the stories that I have about, it's not where I want it to be. I don't have the studio set up the way I want it to be. We're not doing what we want to do on social media, and being all resigned and cynical about it, and then not doing anything.
Right, and it's easy to focus on all the stuff that's not working,
so
the things
easy.
you're not doing. But I haven't done this yet, and you just don't acknowledge yourself for what you're actually up to.
Yeah,
right. I do it everywhere. I do it with business. I do it with the way that my house is set up, the way that. I mean, all that stuff. Every little area, it's not good enough, and I just focus on the not good enough. When I'm not conscious, like caveat.
So that said, I have a question, as we will always have at the end of every podcast. What is it that you would really are really interested in taking the next step on? And haven't yet, or feel like there is something that's constantly pulling you in a different direction. Like what is that thing, and what is that step that you haven't taken, and are you going to take it?
And if you don't know what that thing is, just imagine the last time you said to yourself, "Oh man, I'd love to do that, but," and write in and tell us about that.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. So this was episode 40, the new 50. Soon to be the new 40 again, but we'll talk about that in 10 episodes.
Peace.
See ya.